Yes, welcome back to Veranda CA. Today we will be discussing amendments in chapter 17 and chapter 18 of paper number 3, Advanced Auditing and Professional Ethics of CFIL. Okay, so we've already discussed chapter 5 and chapter 7 in the previous session. Now there are certain amendments which are made, especially in chapter 17, your peer review chapter. That is, there are two units, peer review and quality review, right? So peer review chapter has a good amount of amendments which we will be discussing in today's chapter. Apart from that, there is chapter 18, which is the second part of this entire subject, professional ethics, right? So in professional ethics also, I wanted to touch base upon this important concept of NOCLAR, NOCLAR. Though it is not an amended area, but I thought it's important for everyone to kind of go through that, because that could be a potential examination question for your May 22 exams. Clear? So with that, let's start with chapter number 17, unit 1. Okay, so peer review. Now peer review, sir, at least 4 to 5 marks will come from your from this chapter. There are examination attempts where no marks have been asked, no questions have been asked from peer review. Okay, it is also possible. So it's very important. It's a very small chapter. 4 to 5 marks can easily come from this chapter, and since there are so many amendments in this chapter, it becomes all the more important. So therefore I would request you to please go through this chapter, at least look at this recording, so that you are aware of all the amendments that are there. Okay, so without much ado, let's start with chapter number 17. Chapter 17, unit 1, peer review, right? So first we discuss about the applicability of peer review. Sir, first of all, what is a peer review? Okay, now peer review, just to put in a very very blatant terms, it is basically your ICAI, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. They do some sort of a review on the CA firms or chartered accountants who do audits of certain companies. So depending upon the risk of the company, okay, the audit will be done. The peer review, it's not an audit, it's a peer review process that happens. Okay, so ICI will depute a chartered accountant, and that chartered accountant, who's called the peer reviewer, they will do a peer review on the audit that is being done by the practicing unit, by the CFO. Okay, so depending upon that, so basically there will be a lot of criteria. The most important criteria is whether in the process of doing the audit and attestation engagements, okay, it is mainly for audit engagements, whether the company has complied, whether the audit firm, that is the practice unit, okay, whether they have complied with the technical standards, the ethical standards, and the quality control standards. Okay, so all these standards have been complied with or not. That is the most important review that the peer review does. Okay, so now let's touch upon the finer points of this area where there are amendments. Okay, the first one is on the applicability. Every practicing unit, including its branches, based on their category as determined below, will be subject to peer review in accordance with this statement. So now there are level 1 category companies and level 2 category companies. So level 1, a practicing unit which has undertaken any of the under mentioned assurance services in the period under review shall be treated as a level 1 entity. So what are those level 1 entities? Central statutory audit of any bank or insurance company, statutory audit of central or state public sector undertaking PSU, and central cooperative societies having turnover exceeding 250 crores or net worth exceeding 5 crores. Okay, so if that is the case, then it becomes a level 1 entity. And Mr. A or ABC and Associates does the central statutory audit of a bank. Then ABC becomes, this bank is a level 1 entity, correct? So therefore the peer review is more stringent on this ABC. So the level 1 is the more riskier entity, and therefore the time given, everything will change depending upon which level the entity falls under. Okay. Statutory audit of asset management companies, AMCs, or mutual funds. Statutory audits are level 1 entities. So if I am doing the audit of these entities, then I will fall under the level 1 entities. And the difference between level 1 and level 2, I think if you have read the particular chapter, you will know that the timing will differ. Right, these will be more frequently selected, right? So that in those terms there are a lot of differentiation. Statutory audit of enterprise whose equity or debt are debt securities are listed in India or abroad as defined under SEBI LODR regulations 2015. Statutory audit of any body corporate including trusts which are covered under public interest entities. So all these are forming part of level 1 entities. All your listed companies, your AMC companies, your banks, your PSUs, everything will be considered. You have to keep in mind the threshold because this is how MCQs will be asked. Statutory audit of entities which have raised funds from public or bank or financial institutions or by way of donation contributions over 50 crores. So if I'm a private company, okay, and I have got a bank loan of 50 crores, I become a level 1 entity. Right? Statutory audit of entities having net worth or more than rupees 100 crores or have a turnover of 250 crores or more, I become a peer review. So they can ask you a very simple question on applicability. Okay, they'll give you these are the entities, these are the facts. What is whether it is a level 1 or level 2 entity? These kind of questions are possible through these amendments. Statutory audit of entities which have been funded by central or state governments with over 50 crores. So 250 crores and 50 crores. Statutory audit of NBFC, non-banking financial companies having deposits of 100 crores or above. Statutory audit of entities preparing the financial statement as per Ind. These are all the amendments, boss. These are not there earlier. As per Ind AS. So all Ind AS companies will fall under level 1. What are Ind AS companies? Basically, they will be listed entities or they will be private limited companies having a net worth of 250 crores or more. Okay, that's the requirement, right? As per the Companies Act. Level 2 entities, a practicing unit which have undertaken any of the under mentioned assurance services to the below entities will be a level 2 entity. Statutory audit, internal concurrent systems, tax audit, departmental review of branches or office of a public sector undertaking, any bank or any insurance company. Earlier we saw central statutory audit. Here any kind of audit will be level 2. A statutory audit of on NBFC are not covered in L1 above. So less than 100 crores is level 2. UDINs generated by practice units more than the specified number determined by the board from time to time. This is a very important one, sir. Any practicing unit that generates, so there will be a threshold. Say in a year you should generate say 100 UDINs. If you generate more than that, then that can be randomly selected. This is a new area. Any other practicing unit providing assurance services or other services not covered under 1, 2 and 3 herein above. So anything can be considered level 2. Right. So then there is another this thing called special case review. The board, based on specific information received from the secretary, ICR, discipline directorate or any other regulator, which is in the opinion of the board requires a special review of the practice unit, may conduct a special review of the practice unit for a period to be determined in each case. So they have the powers to, though it doesn't fall under L1, L2, they want to do a special this thing because of the information given by any regulator, they can do, they are allowed to do. So this is similar to your test audit, supplementary audit. CAG can have powers to do test audit and supplementary audit, right? Same concept here also. Now this is an amended area, the special case review, right? Any practicing unit not selected for peer review may suo moto. What is suo moto? Voluntarily apply to the board for the conduct of its peer review. The board shall act upon the same within 30 days from the date of receipt of such a request. An auditee may request the board for the conduct of peer review of its auditor. The board shall act upon the same within 30 days from the date of receipt of such request. Sir, what does this mean? So let me give an example. So XYZ Limited is the client, right? It is being audited by ABC and Associates. Okay, and then there is a peer review. So either ABC and Associates can do it suo moto, but do a peer review on me. Okay, I would not say peer review, I would say ICI. Or XYZ Limited, the auditee can also go and ask the ICAI, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, okay, to conduct the peer review. That is also possible. The board will have to respond within 30 days, the peer review board. The board, with the approval of council, may modify any of the above criteria, of course. Now, meeting requirement. This is a peer review board. How often they can meet? That's the area. Here the only changes is every calendar quarter. No business shall be transacted at any meeting of the board unless there are present at least 1/3 of the members of the board, but not less than 3 members. 1/3 but not at least 3 members, including the chairman or in his absence the vice chairman. In the absence of quorum within half an hour of the time fixed for the meeting shall stand adjourned to a date, time and place fixed by the chairman or in his absence the vice chairman. The board shall meet as and when required for transaction of the business before it. However, at least one meeting shall be held in every calendar quarter. Now, there is no, so Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Once in every calendar quarter, they will have to hold the peer review meeting. Right, a peer reviewer. Now, what is the eligibility to be a peer reviewer? I, as a chartered accountant, can I be a peer reviewer? No, answer is no. There's some eligibility criteria. If I meet those eligibility criteria, then I am eligible to be a peer reviewer. Okay, shall be a member in practice with at least 7 years of audit experience. Okay, in case a member has moved from industry to practice and is currently in practice, he should have at least 10 years of audit experience in industry and at least 3 years audit experience in practice. 10 years in industry and 3 years in, if he is completely into practice, then 7 years. If he is into was in industry and now he is moved into practice, then this is not qualified. 10 years of audit experience in industry and 3 years in practice, that is okay. Should have undergone the requisite training and cleared the requisite test for peer review as prescribed by the board. So, this is an amendment. Okay. So, 7 and 10 plus 3. Sir, Mr. A, after qualification, I started practice only, sir. I am finished this is my 8th year. I am eligible to be a peer reviewer. Sir, Mr. A, I was into practice for, I was into industry for, let's say, 12 years. And then I thought, no, I want to start my own practice. Now, I am in my 4th year of practice. So, 10 years and 3 years both qualified. Therefore, I can be an eligible peer reviewer. I am eligible. Sir, I am Mr. A. I have finished, I was in industry for 3 years and then I started doing my practice. Then I have to fall under this particular criteria, that is 7. I need to finish 7 years and then I will have to do, I will be eligible for peer review, to become a peer reviewer, right. A member on being appointed as a reviewer shall be required to furnish a declaration as prescribed. Now, these are procedural aspects. A declaration is prescribed by the board at the time of empanelment as a peer reviewer. A declaration of confidentiality as per annexure A to this statement while giving consent for appointment as a peer reviewer. Right, a member shall not be eligible for being appointed as a reviewer of a practice unit if any disciplinary action or proceeding is pending against him, he has been found guilty of professional misconduct or other misconduct by the council or the board of discipline or the disciplinary committee at any time, been found guilty. So, even it is in process, he is out pending, and even if he is found guilty, he cannot be eligible for becoming a peer reviewer, right. So, this you will study more in your professional ethics. You would have studied, I am sure, guilt, professional misconduct, other misconduct, all of that. He has been convicted by a competent court, whether within India or outside India, of an offence involving moral turpitude and punishable with imprisonment, right. So, if any of these 3 are there, he cannot become a peer reviewer. He or his partners have any obligation or conflict of interest in the practice unit. Very important, sir. He or his partners have any obligation, that is a self-interest threat is there, or a conflict of interest in that could be multiple cases. I am a peer reviewer, my partner is holding shares in the company or something like that. Okay, then I cannot be a peer reviewer for that particular entity. So, there should not be any conflict of interest. He has undergone training, articleship under any of the partner of the practice unit. Sir, this is very important. He has undergone training, articleship under any of the partner of the practice unit, then he can be eligible for a peer reviewer, to become a peer reviewer. Okay, so I am Mr. A. Okay, and I want to become a peer reviewer. I have the requisite expertise. I don't have any disciplinary action, but I should not have any obligation or conflict of interest for the entity for whom I am being appointed as a peer reviewer. Point 1. Point number 2, I should have undergone training or articleship under any partner of the practicing unit. So, the practicing unit through which I am being appointed as a peer reviewer, I should have undergone articleship under the partner of that practicing unit, then I can be eligible. Right? This is a new requirement. Obligations of the peer reviewer. The reviewer shall not take any extracts of the practice unit's client files or records examined by him while conducting peer review as part of his working papers. Shall not take any extracts of the practice unit's client's files or records examined by him while conducting peer review as part of his working papers. The reviewer shall complete the review within the prescribed time frame and submit the report to the board. Here the board means the peer review board. The reviewer shall document all his working papers and submit a copy of his working papers to the board if called for by the board within 18 months of submission of the review report. Again I repeat, the reviewer shall document all his working papers and submit a copy of his working papers. So not only the report but working papers also should be submitted if called for by the board within 18 months from the date of submission of the report, right? Notification to the practice unit. A practice unit which has been selected for a peer review shall be notified by the board. Of course, you need to be notified. The practice unit means a CA firm on whom the peer review is going to happen, right? They have to be notified. A detailed declaration and questionnaire in the form approved by the board shall be submitted by the practice unit within 7 days from the date of practice unit has been notified by the board, so that the reviewer to be allotted from the panel of 3 reviewers can be identified by the board as per the declaration cum questionnaire submitted by the practice unit. This is a new requirement again. A detailed declaration, a questionnaire basically in the form approved by the board shall be submitted by the practice unit within 7 days. So I will circulate a practice questionnaire. The practice unit has to fill it up and has to submit it to the board within 7 days. Basis that the peer review board will appoint or allot a peer reviewer from a panel of 3 reviewers, right, by the board as per the declaration cum questionnaire submitted by the practice unit. That is what is more an administrative area. Name of 3 reviewers shall be recommended by the board to the practice unit so selected. The practice unit shall select 1 out of the 3 reviewers and intimate to the board within 7 days of the receipt of the name. So the peer reviewer, the PRB, the board is not going to say, boss, this person is allotted. It will say these 3 are the eligible reviewers, right? So you select one. So the practice unit will select one, depending upon their relevance or whatever criteria that they are following. How many days? 7 days. So everywhere it is 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. Earlier also 7 days to submit the questionnaire. Now also it is 7 days. The board shall intimate the reviewer so selected and seek his consent within 7 days. He has to also give his consent, right, of confidentiality, etc. Now the next one is on planning. Information to be furnished by the practice unit. On intimation by the board, the reviewer's consent, the practice unit shall within 2 days provide the copy of completely filled up questionnaire earlier submitted with the board to the reviewer along with details of this is information to be furnished by the practice unit. On intimation by the board, the reviewer's consent, the practice unit shall within 2 days provide the copies of completely filled up questionnaire earlier submitted with the board to the reviewer. Earlier you gave it to the board. Who gave it to the board? The practice unit. Now it has to be given to the reviewer, right, along with details of any proceedings against the practice unit or any of its partners or qualified assistants taken by any regulatory, monitoring or enforcement bodies relating to investigation or allegation of deficiency in the conduct of attest function. It could be any client. You may select the client A, but this is against client B. No problem. You have to submit that, right? But it has to relate to the conduct of attest function by them. It's not something personal, something which is relating to the conduct of attest function by them during the period of 3 financial years preceding to the period of review or at any time thereafter, that is till the date of submission of the duly filled in questionnaire. So this is important, sir. 3 financial years preceding to the period of review, peer review, preceding the period of review. So say I am selecting for 2021. So 3 years prior to that and thereafter till date, till today, whatever any proceedings are there, it has to be submitted by the practicing unit to the reviewer. Information to be furnished by the peer review board. The peer review board shall call for relevant information from the UDIN directorate and may share the concerned details with the peer reviewer which shall form part of the peer review. Selection of sample by the reviewer. The reviewer shall within 7 days of receiving the information from the practicing unit or practice unit select a sample of the assurance services that he would like to review and intimate the same to the practice unit and the peer review board. Again I repeat, the reviewer shall select within 7 days of receiving the information from the practice unit. Select a sample of the, so basically how will you select? Basically the UDIN that is generated. So for example, I become a level 1 entity if I am doing an audit of a central statutory bank. Of course, I am getting selected. Who is me? Practice unit. Practice unit is getting selected. So now the peer reviewer who is going to be doing my peer review, he will select on a sample basis what are the assurance services I need to select to do my review. Okay, so that is what is being mentioned here, right? So you select a sample of the assurance services that he would like to review and intimate the same to the practice unit and the peer review board. Next, the reviewer may also seek further additional clarification from practice unit on the information furnished or not furnished. The reviewer shall plan for an on-site review or initial meeting in consultation with the practice unit. The reviewer shall give the practice unit at least 5 days time to keep ready the necessary records of the selected assurance services. The reviewer and practice unit shall mutually cooperate and ensure that the entire review process is completed within, sir, how many days, sir? 60 days. Very important. From the date of notifying the practice unit about its selection for review. From which date, sir? From the date of notifying the practice unit about its selection for review. Not from the date of selection of the reviewer, from the reviewed, that you have been selected, congratulations, your thing will be audited. From then till within that 60 days, within that it has to be completed. It's quite a short period of time, again depending upon the services. Execution. Peer review visits. Peer review visits will be conducted at the practice unit's head office or branches or any other location. This on-site review should not extend beyond 7 working days. How many days, sir? 7 working days based on the size of the practice unit. Not more than 7. It could be less than 7 days, it could be equal to 7 days, but not more than 7 days. Reporting. Discussion or communication of findings. After completing the on-site review, the reviewer, before making his report to the board, shall communicate his findings to the practice unit. If in his opinion the systems and procedures are deficient or non-compliant with reference to any matter that has been noticed by him, or if there are other matters which he wants to seek clarification. This is very important, sir. This is very important. This is a new area. So before going to the peer review board, the peer reviewer has to kind of sit down with the practice unit and thrash out all these are the findings that I have, these are the observations, what is your comments. Now there is a possibility that there could be some genuine findings, or for which there could be some reason. So that also has to be considered before giving a report to the board by the peer reviewer. That is what, this is a very important area which needs to be there. The practice unit shall within 5 days of the date of receipt of findings make the submissions or representations in writing to the reviewer. Peer review certificate. On receipt of the peer review report, the board is a peer review board, within 3 months, this was not there earlier, this is a new addition, within 3 months, how many months are 3 months, issue a peer review certificate to the practice unit mentioning the validity period. Very important. Issue a peer review certificate to the practice unit mentioning the validity period. So till this time, no problem, where is the validity? So again you will not be picked up, again that practicing unit will not be picked up. Right, issue a peer review certificate to the practice unit. Inform the practice unit that a peer review certificate cannot be issued along with reasons thereof, therefore, as well as inform the practice unit about the due date for conducting a follow-on review. So a peer review, this concept was not there earlier. A PRC will be given to the board, by the board to the practice unit, saying that boss, you have been done, this is the validity. Till then you will not be doing any, there won't be any in the peer review, you may be eligible after the validity period. Or inform the practice that a peer review certificate cannot be issued along with the reasons, categories, whatever reasons they are, as well as inform the practice unit about the due date for conducting a follow-on review. So this can either this or this, it's an or condition, not an and condition. Now with this chapter number 17, all the amendments we are completing. Okay, so these are very small additions scattered here and there in the book, in the ISM. I have picked up from from your ISM and I have put it in this PPT which we have discussed right now. Definitely there could be some questions considering the amount of amendments that are there. I am expecting there will be some questions. I mean, I cannot say for 100% for sure, but I am expecting some questions that can come in the examination, from this chapter number 17. So at least if you have not gone through this chapter, at least read the recordings, refer the recording that that is being given, so that you will have some idea. If questions come, you can write. Okay. Now another important concept that I want to touch base upon is this NOCLAR, NOCLAR. So why, sir, this is not an amended area, this was applicable I think from December 21 attempt itself, but I thought this is very important because this is a new concept. So if you remember, if you've gone through your professional ethics class, there is a code of ethics, okay, against which you have all these Chartered Accountants Act, all of that, right? So there was a code of ethics of 2009. In 2020, ICI came out with another code of ethics, which was 2020. Now, this 2020 code of ethics introduced this new concept of NOCLAR. This NOCLAR concept is brought about by this CEO, by this 2020 code of ethics. It was not there earlier. Sir, simple meaning of NOCLAR, just to give a very, then we'll go on to the context, the content, and see how we can best, it's all from ISM only, but let's understand what this NOCLAR is. Very simply, I like to put, it's non-compliance with laws and regulations. It's non-compliance with laws and non-compliance with laws and regulations. That's NOCLAR. Sir, what does it have to do with anything? So here it says, if the auditor, now it need not be an auditor, if a chartered accountant in practice or if a chartered accountant in service, practice or service, finds out that there are certain non-compliances in the company, okay, with laws and regulations, or suspected NOCLAR, non-compliance with laws, it could be any law or regulation, okay, by either the client or by the company, by the employees in the company, by the board, by TCWG, by whoever in the company, he has to report that. It is his due, though it is not forming part of the scope of his work, may not be impacting his audit, but if there is a non-compliance, he has to report that NOCLAR. He has to report that NOCLAR to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. This is the new addition in NOCLAR. So, in the course of providing a professional service to a client or carrying out professional service for an employer, so both chartered accountants in practice and chartered accountants in service, a professional accountant may come across an instance of non-compliance with laws and regulations or suspected NOCLAR committed or about to be committed by the client or the employer. Client could be CA in practice, employer CA in service, or by TCWG management or employees of the client or employer. Non-compliance with laws and regulations comprise of acts or omission or commission, intentional or unintentional, both. So, it's not fraud. We are not saying it's fraud. Only fraud has to be reported. No, it could be unintentional also, which are contrary to the prevailing laws or regulations. Anything which is not in line with the prevailing laws or regulations, that has to be reported. Committed by client or professional accountants employing organization, those charged with governance of a client or employing organization, management of a client or employing organization is for CA in service, and management of here the client here means practice. CA is in practice, because for a practicing chartered accountant, the client, for a chartered accountant in service, it's an employing organization. Other individuals working for under the direction of a client or employing organization, anyone. So, the ambit is very huge. The ambit is very, very large. It is the client himself, or TCWG of the client, or management of the client, or any other individual who are accustomed to act within the direction of the client, under the direction of the client. Anyone who is committing, however, NOCLAR under the revised code of ethics does not address personal misconduct unrelated to the business activities of the client, employing organization, and non-compliance by parties other than listed out in the definition of NOCLAR. Okay, so you only have to report the non-compliance of laws and regulations which are related to the business of the client or the employing organization, and not the personal misconduct. Has no place over here. Okay, and non-compliance by parties other than listed out in the definition of NOCLAR. Okay, so non-compliance. So there are two aspects. One is personal misconduct is removed. Exception. These are two exceptions. Second one, if the non-compliance is done by people other than this and this, then it need not be there. So, parties other than mentioned in the definition, other parties. Let me put it as other parties. So, if the parties are other parties which are not in the definition, then these need not be reported. This is not applicable. So, as per IESBA, I am sure you will know this, following examples should be covered in the NOCLAR: fraud, corruption and bribery, money laundering, terrorist financing, proceeds of crime, securities and insider trading, bank and other financial products and services, data protection, environmental protection, public health and safety, tax and pension liabilities and payments. So anything from a fiscal point of view, monetary point of view, operational point of view, environmental point of view, cyber security point of view, if you know that there is any non-compliance relating to business and conducted by parties that are defined in the NOCLAR definition, those 4 parties, then the NOCLAR will be applicable. So a chartered accountant in practice or a chartered accountant in service will have to report the same. The objective of NOCLAR is that turning a blind eye to a potential NOCLAR is not an appropriate response from professional accountants, while placing renewed emphasis on the roles of management and those charged with governance in addressing the matter. Right? Further, it increases awareness and understanding among professional accountants of their legal and regulatory responsibilities when they face NOCLAR. So what happens here is, see, when you are doing the audit, see, you may come across certain compliances, non-compliances, whatever. When you do non-compliance, when you find out non-compliance, there could be some non-compliances which are not material, which you will ignore or which will not be relevant from an audit standpoint. But still you may have to report it to the, you may have to report as part of NOCLAR. Why, sir? Because you know, this will increase the awareness and understanding upon professional accountants of their legal and regulatory responses. This is an additional implied responsibility on the accountants. Okay, though it is not covered by a part of the scope, but from a larger picture perspective, since we are the business doctors, the chartered accountants, this therefore an emphasis is a new area is put in NOCLAR. In fact, I was reading about this. They said NOCLAR in 2020, India would be one of the very few countries who have adopted this NOCLAR approach. There are very few countries who do that. India is one among them, right? So this becomes essential for every chartered accountant to understand that over and above your scope of work, you have certain responsibilities which are given by ICAI, by your IESBA. Clear? So even though it is not part of the scope, though if you find any non-compliance, you still have to report them. Okay. During the course of providing a service, NOCLAR will be applicable if a professional accountant encounters or is made aware of non-compliance or suspected non-compliance in the course of providing a service or to a client. He is not required to investigate, nor is responsible for ensuring complete compliance. Of course. So, that's only when you come across such non-compliance, you have to investigate. I mean, you will have to report. If you don't have, if you don't have any, if you don't know it, or if you are not aware of it, you are not required to further investigate and probe just because there is a NOCLAR provision applicable to the practicing chartered accountant. Clear? A professional accountant is expected to apply knowledge and expertise and exercise professional judgment. However, he is not expected to have a level of knowledge of laws and regulations greater than that which is required for him to undertake the engagement. Whether an act constitutes non-compliance, ultimately a matter to be determined by a court or other appropriate adjudicative body. Absolutely, sir. So if I find it to be a non-compliant, I am not an expert, I may not be an expert in that law, but I find it to be non-compliant, I will have to report. That's all. I will have to report that. Then it is up to the court to decide whether he is compliant or non-compliant. I am not the judge, I am not the court. Certain matters expressly out of the purview. Matters that are clearly inconsequential, not material, or relating to personal misconduct pertaining to business activities of the client, not covered. Disclosure which is contrary to law, not required. As per IESBA code, disclosure of the matter to an appropriate authority would be precluded if doing so would be contrary to the law or regulation. So precluded means not required. Should not be done, not possible, prohibited. Should be precluded if doing so would be, so disclosing that matter itself is, contrary to a law, then it should not be done. Then that matter should not be disclosed. Now, NOCLAR versus SA 250. Sir, this is important. SA 250, I'm sure you guys would have gone through SA 250. It is non-compliance with laws and regulations. So there is some, there is one standard on auditing which talks about SA 250. So what is the difference between this and the NOCLAR? Okay, that's important. I mean, they also talk about auditor's responsibility relating to compliance with laws and regulations. Here, same thing. Auditor is required to understand the legal, I mean, I'm just giving a brief of SA 250. Auditor is required to understand the legal system or the legal environment in which the entity is operating, and to see whether he is complying with all the material laws and regulations. He cannot give a guarantee that all the laws and regulations are complied with, but he definitely has to check whether all the he has to understand the legal the legal environment under which the entity is operating, and needs to see whether, you need to check whether there is a proper compliance. Say for example, paying your GST liabilities, or paying your income taxes, or your Income Tax Act, your GST law, your Customs Act if you are importing, your FEMA laws, all those things, if it's applicable to the company, the auditor has to check whether they have been complied with or not. This is as per SA 250. But the overall primary responsibility to ensure compliance with laws and regulation is with the management. That's very well clearly defined under SA 250 itself. Now, what is the difference between NOCLAR and 250, SA 250? Let's understand. SA 250 is applicable only on audit and not on other assurance engagements. Absolutely. However, NOCLAR is applicable on all professional accountants in services and in practice. Right? So the ambit of NOCLAR is quite bigger, right? Among those in practice, it applies to auditors as well as professional services other than audit. It applies to professional services other than audit. Again, it is for assurance engagements, not for all kinds of engagements, but there are multiple types of assurance engagement. Audit is not the only assurance. A review is also an assurance. A limited review is also an assurance engagement. Right? You give a negative assurance. But 250 is not applicable to those review engagement, but NOCLAR becomes applicable. However, the degree of responsibility of the professional accountant varies as per the role. So that's one major difference in terms of applicability. SA 250 talks of the auditor's responsibility for laws having direct effect on determination of material amounts and disclosures in the financial statements, such as tax and labor laws, and other laws and regulations that do not have a direct effect on the determination of the amounts and disclosures in the financial statement, but compliance with which may be fundamental to the operating aspects of the business. NOCLAR, while being alike to SA 250 till this point, is further ahead of it, that it takes into account non-compliance that causes substantial harm, resulting in serious consequences in financial or non-financial terms. So there may not be any financial impact. So SA 250 is restricted to determination of material amounts, financial impact, on disclosures on the financial statements, and other laws and regulations that do not have a direct effect on the determination of amount and disclosures in the financial statement. More on the financial aspects of it. Which one? SA 250, how much penalty to be paid, how much this, how much that. NOCLAR, on the other hand, is not on monetary basis alone. There could be some non-monetary, say loss of reputation, loss of market, which is also very important. It may not be, everything cannot be monetary defined. It may be non-financial. So resulting in serious consequences in financial and non-financial terms. So both are covered in NOCLAR. SA 250 does not define stakeholders. NOCLAR is related to effect of non-compliance on investor. This could be a very simple, straightforward question as to what is NOCLAR, who are the parties that are covered in NOCLAR, how different is it from SA 250? A simple, straightforward question. These points have to be written. Just like that, simple questions, questions can come, right? It's related to effect of non-compliance on investors, creditors, employees, and also the general public. So you have those four parties. SA 250 does not have four parties. It does not define any stakeholders. It just says compliance with laws and regulations, right? So NOCLAR is more detailed in terms of who are the stakeholders here. As per NOCLAR, in exceptional circumstances, the professional accountant might become aware of an imminent breach of law or regulation that would cause substantial harm to investors, creditors, employees, or general public. Having first considered whether it would be appropriate to discuss the matter with management or TCWG of the company, the accountant shall exercise professional judgment and determine whether to disclose the matter immediately to an appropriate authority. Now, he has to decide. Who has to decide? The auditor will have to decide, the chartered accountant will have to decide, okay, to an appropriate authority in order to prevent or mitigate the consequences of such imminent. It has to have some serious consequences in financial and non-financial terms. If disclosure is made, that disclosure is permitted. This provision is non-existent in SA 250. So, first discussing with the management, then going and reporting to a third appropriate authority. If disclosure is made, then that disclosure is permitted. Okay, all of that detailed discussion is not given in SA 250, whereas it is there in NOCLAR in Code of Ethics 2020. Applicability of NOCLAR in India. Okay, now NOCLAR till today in the Code of Ethics, it is only applicable to listed companies. IESBA Code of Ethics makes NOCLAR applicable to all assignments in case of members and to all employees in case of members in services. However, in ICAI Code, as of now, Institute has restricted the applicability of NOCLAR to audit assignments of listed entity in case of members in practice, and for the members in service, applicability has been restricted to employees of listed entities only. IESB is the International Ethical Standard Board, right? So they have made applicable for everything, all kind of assignments. Okay, in case of members in practice and members in service, whereas Indian Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the ICAI, has made applicable only for listed companies. Listed companies who employ chartered accountants, or listed companies, whose the chartered accountants in practice who do audit of listed companies. So NOCLAR is only applicable to them as per the ICAI code, which is prevailing currently, that is the 2020 code. Yes, with this we come to the end of chapter 17 and chapter 18, amendments. In detail, we have covered both peer review and your legal professional ethics, right? So chapter 18, again, it is not an amendment, but it's an important area where questions can be asked. Okay, I request you to go through the book once again, okay, to consolidate whatever that you have read so far. Please spend time. This could be potential examination questions, could be 4 marks, 5 marks, but very important for you to clear this paper. Okay, I wish you all the best. Take care and thank you.